I bought a car today on auction.
Oh,
Salvage.
Well, good evening. Welcome to our April 22nd regular school board meeting here for the Pullman School District. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be the first. Carl, would you lead us?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carl. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Dr. Sturm, do we have any changes this evening?
I don't believe so. I think we had some changes to policy 5,000 that were missing and updated today, so it should be current now. So I think we're good.
Do I hear a motion for approval of the agenda as presented?
so moved.
Second.
And second? Okay, moved and second that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. We now move into our visitors section for the meeting. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the school board this evening, we welcome you and would like to invite you up to the podium. And we would ask you to state your name and address here in Pullman. And we limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
Sure.
And we may or may not discuss them this evening, okay?
Sure, thank you. Thank you. This was the pictures. Sure. So my name is Karen Grable, and I just have hard copies. I didn't make a slide. And my husband and I are moving into a home at 815 Northwest Valley View. I've included a plat map for you. And it happens to be on the other side of the soccer field. We love the location. We can't wait to watch the games. But it is actually adjacent to the north goal of the soccer field. And during the construction process, we've had, one day we had 20 balls kicked over the fence into the yard, some that have hit the house. And we're just concerned moving forward that there may be damage to the home, but also the students, obviously, the soccer balls are expensive, so they have to jump the fence. They do two things. They either jump the fence and get the ball, or they walk down one house and they come down the path and they come around the house and they get the ball. So we were just hoping that maybe the school board could put up maybe netting, taller netting around the goal. And that's all we're asking for. We love the kids. We actually know some of the kids by now, and we help them and throw the balls back over, but we're concerned for liability and also damage to our home. And I gave you some pictures. We're ready, obviously we'll be moving by June 1st, excuse me. This is our home right here. This is on the front page of the paper. So there's the goal right there. And then there's an aerial view, and I circled the goal. So it's right towards the house. And I guess we asked the coach because there's two goals. Oh, I'm sorry. I ruined your agenda. I'm sorry. There's two goals. They favor the goal that's near our house for practice. I guess they just like that goal better. So when they practice against that goal.
Well,
So.
out of fairness, to keep the goal mouth healthy, I am the coach. I apologize that we send all the balls down there.
Great, coach. I appreciate it.
Part of us playing on the north end is because the goal mouth gets so warm at the south end. So we try to balance it, obviously.
I get you. Yeah.
Anyways, I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. We love the team, and we want to support the team. In fact, we're going to set up a little bistro table there and watch the games. So I'm not here in an adversarial manner.
You don't have to leave yet. You've still got a few more minutes.
Okay.
Does the board have any questions this evening?
Issue's real clear.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. Thank
Okay.
you. It's,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you for considering our request.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all the graphics.
Yeah.
It makes it very easy to.
It's great.
Thank you so much.
Are there any other visitors that would like to address the school board this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on then to our reports, correspondence, and programs. We'll start with our board reports. We have two board members that are absent this evening, Dean Kinzer and Susan Weed. So we'll start with Alice. Any questions or comments?
I would like everyone to know that we have 23 middle school students and 6 high school students at We Day in Seattle for the next couple days. It's a terrific opportunity for youth education and empowerment, and I want to thank the Kiwanis organization for their support of that opportunity for the kids.
Thank you, Allison. Carl?
Well, just wanted to mention thanks to Principal Joe Thornton, who took time, as he usually does, at the end, beginning, middle, or whatever of his day here as the principal, to tour the 3 of us school board members just in the last hour or so. He's also spent time with me, keeping me updated on the construction. I really appreciate that. And since I don't see anyone to report, maybe in the superintendent's report, I think it was the 3rd year in a row that one of our students has won state welding and will go to nationals. I believe it's 3 in a row. Another student from here was 3rd in the whole state in welding, and then 2nd, a different student was 2nd in precision machining. Unfortunately, only the state winners in each category go to nationals, but sometimes the winner won't be able to go, and maybe our 2nd place machinist will get to go. A tremendous accomplishment by the instructor there, I believe it's Mr. Hadley, right?
Hanley.
Yeah, Hanley. And I just wanted to let the board know that I've suggested to the superintendent that maybe we can do something in late August, early September, so that as we move toward completion of the first phase, that some of our patrons can, by reservation, tour or whatever. So I'm hoping we can have a discussion about that sometime, and particularly have the press along and so on.
Thank you, Carl.
Right.
I just had one report this evening, and I just wanted to congratulate Dan and the staff, the financial state. We just met with the Attorney General's office, is that correct? The auditor?
State auditors.
State auditors. And it was good news for the Pullman School District. We were able to go through the audit, and there were no discrepancies found. And I believe this was the first year that that's ever been found. Is that correct? Since I've been on the board, I mean,
I think it's the first year we didn't have a recommendation even.
Yeah.
So it was a completely clean audit.
Okay, good. So anyway, I wanted to commend the Pullman School District for doing that.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dan.
I'd just like to say that's a reflection of all the departments in the school district, in the central office, that everybody participates in that. It was a great effort, so thank you.
And that's all I have for this evening. We'll move on to our superintendent's report, Dr. Strong.
Yeah, I'll just want to reiterate, Dan, thank you for the good work that you do. I know sometimes you take some heat for holding people accountable for doing it right, but that's what it takes, and so thanks for doing that. Yeah. I'm assuming that perhaps we talked about enrollment last board meeting. Just a little bit. Anyway, our current enrollment as of the 1st of November, where'd that come from? 1st of April was FTE 2458.6, which was nearly the same as the month before. We've not had much change since January, so it's holding pretty steady. Our average for the year right now is at the budget that we set for next year. So I think that's good news. It will probably dip just a little bit from that, as especially our June enrollment is typically down a bit. I'd also like to, I think this, yeah, these are the same copy, different copies of the same letter. We had some visitors from Kasai, Japan. Thank you, Dan. And they visited primarily the middle school, and there were a number of issues that, in particular, our principal, Cameron Grove, helped resolve, and the middle school welcomed them. And anyway, this is a nice letter thanking Cameron. Bob had a couple of, was a host family for a couple of the students, and they spent about a week in our middle school, the students did. So that was the first of a restart of that relationship with the city of Kasai for the city and Pullman schools.
That's good news.
Then I'd like to, we received a nice card from a former employee. It's a bit of a hello and thank you for appreciating and recognizing retired teachers. It's from Marlis, used to be Johnson, when she was a teacher here. So
Yeah.
send that down for you to take a look at. And then we'll need, I kind of thought Joe Thornton would be here, principal of Pullman High School, who took us on a tour of the construction site earlier. I'm going to tell the board now, and then we'll invite him back to recognize him publicly.
Okay.
But he was selected Great Northern League Principal of the Year for 2014-15. So
right.
his peers voted him as Principal of the Year. So
Wow.
that's a nice honor for him.
It's really good.
Well deserved.
One of the main scoring categories was living in a construction zone
Yeah,
for
I
a
think
year.
so. Anything else? Okay, that's it. That's, I believe that's it. for
That's
my
nice
report.
recognition.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Paul. We'll now move on to our consent agenda, which is the compilation of things that we try to move through to expedite our business.
I do have one more.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, if I can interrupt
Sure.
and back up, because it is in the consent agenda, and I forgot to put it in my notes, and it just about didn't make it into my memory. We had a process last week to select an activities coordinator, assistant principal at Pullman High School, and Chris Johnson from, who is now in North Kitsap, has agreed to be the activities coordinator. He was, we had a good selection of candidates, so it was a competitive pool. He kind of bubbled to the top on kind of every one of the various, I think, 5 different processes we ran them through, and from written to interview to parent and student forums and what have you. And he's excited to be here, and we're excited to have him. So we're asking the board in the consent agenda to consider approving that tonight.
So that would take into consideration the athletic director position, is that correct?
Well, it's activities coordinator. We kind of restructured that position. It's an activities coordinator, which includes the athletic director duties.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions from the board? So now I can move on to the consent agenda, and this will include the minutes from last meetings, the budget status report, warrants, personnel reports, including the one that Dr. Stern just mentioned to us, professional personal services reports, overnight field trip request, transfer request, and ASB club news. How would the board like to proceed with this?
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. We now move into our action items, and we only have one action item this evening, And for the information, we already heard about this. We discussed it at our last meeting. This is on the potential property and approval of the appraisal. And our presenter will be Dan Hornfield.
Thank you. And there were a couple of questions last week about some acreage at the other school sites and process through the construction group in facilities. So I sent that out, and I hope that you did get that.
Thank you, Dan.
And Paul's here this time as well, so he can kick in here as well if he'd like to. We're talking about what we presented last week, last board meeting to the board. It's not a commitment to purchase. It's a request to move forward on a 12.1 acre site, about 300 feet from TerraView, north of the high school, a piece of property that we've spent quite a bit of time going through different opportunities, and finally came down to that piece of property to recommend to the board that we at least get started on that, take a look at it and see. The first step would be to have an appraisal done on that property. So we come before the board tonight, and Paul may want to add some more to it to request the go-ahead on that particular part of the process.
I really don't have anything to add except that I was asked to put the high school and middle school on this map, and I failed to do that. I apologize for that, but the high school is located right in this area here, and the middle school is I believe it's this green space right here. No, it's this green space.
Right.
Right.
This is Dan's house right here.
I wish it was that big.
So to give you an idea where the distribution of our current schools, these are the 3 elementary schools in the circles. This is the location of the proposed future site that we're asking the board to let us move forward to get an appraisal and eventually perhaps ask the board to approve this as a purchase, excuse me.
Any thoughts, discussion from the board about this?
Went down, walked the site. It's ideal.
Okay. You reported about 90% flat.
Would we say a 60-foot rise from one end of 12 acres to the other across it? So.
And
Yeah.
the acreage, thank you for that chart, the acreage was in line with our other school
Yes.
acreages as well. So
Yes.
it's-
We had a engineer, or actually Mr. Mader had his engineer do a rough analysis of the property, and I believe if we filled that to bring it up to the grade where TerraView would run in front of it, we'd have 9.3 acres flat, which is well adequate for an elementary school.
Right.
And then the remainder provides a buffer from any other, any other development or housing around
To the
around
north, basically.
And I think the Pullman.
Well, it kind of depends
Depends on
on,
how you look.
yeah, where the school would end up being located on the property, but yeah, it starts going uphill pretty quickly from the south end,
Right.
and TerraView would ultimately will run and connect. So the property will ultimately face what will be an extended TerraView that's scheduled to be linked up. And so
It's
you have-
also inevitably going to be linked to Pullman Road also.
Yeah, that's,
It- In fact, that's in some rough plans that are drawn. Which will then give 3, certainly 2, and then 3 potentially safety exits and so on for traffic.
Yeah, I think the reason to ask for the location of those other schools, Paul, was just to show the equidistance on the map here for future discussion. If constituents had questions. And it appears as if Pullman is moving northward, northwestward. So
Yeah, this
annexed by the city.
This area up here has been annexed by the city.
Right.
So it doesn't show on this. Google hasn't updated that part of it. But
Right.
And
this
Brayton
area is-
Road all the way out to Albion Road is in the development zone. From that triangle, basically, is in where it's already, I don't know how to explain it, except that when it's in the development zone, the county shares the taxes for a while and doesn't have them go off the county's rolls for a planned succession, and the city picks them up as it's annexed.
I think you're
But-
talking about this
So it's
area right in here.
right.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the information we have as well.
Does the board have any further discussion? How would they like to move on this?
I move authorization to Administration Superintendent Sturm to pursue appraisal of the proposed or the site so that we can move forward with at least the first required step toward acquiring the property. If we've got to do it step by step legally, so and this is the first step.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and second that we approve the potential property approval of appraisal on this piece of property northwest Pullman. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan. We now move into our discussion items, and our first discussion items is the world language course offerings from Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you very much. In our continuing efforts to analyze our course offerings each year and look at our program enrollment data, one of the things that we've been talking about for several years is our world language offerings at the high school and the number of students that have been enrolling in the both Spanish and French. Currently, only Spanish is offered at the middle school, a 0 in first period. One of the things that we're finding and have looked back at years of data is that more students take Spanish in high school than they take French, and we believe part of that is because we've already front-loaded Spanish at the middle level, and so it makes sense for those students to continue on in Spanish, but that's created quite a disparity in our enrollment numbers in French courses and Spanish courses at the high school. So in talking with the principals at the middle school and the high school, both Cameron and Joe, we've discussed for next year what we'd like to offer is one period of French at the middle school and one period of Spanish at the middle school, hoping that that will create in the future a more equitable enrollment in our world language programs at the high school level. So what we're proposing would be, again, to offer a period of French and a period of Spanish at the middle school level starting next year.
And I would just like to comment that, you know, all that's good, but we have heard from families that having that choice, if a student wants to start a language early, they only have one choice now. This way, you know, students, not only would it help balance our numbers and make it administratively more manageable, it's just giving the kids an option at that level instead of only one.
Would the two language offerings be both during first period, or would one be 0 hour and one be first period?
Currently, what we're looking at is we'd offer probably 1 0 period and 1 first period. We haven't decided yet. Nothing's been finalized, but we're trying to see how we would break that down.
So, of course, the difficulty there is there are lots of 0 hour activities at
Yeah.
the middle school already.
Yeah.
So no one who's in jazz band could take whatever is offered at the 0 hour, and a host of other things too.
We've talked about maybe flip-flopping that every year. We've talked about maybe we could. We'd have to look a little deeper. We didn't want to continue to go down that road if we were like, no, we're not going to offer two. But that's something I can bring back to Joe and Cameron. We can have more discussion on, and the feasibility of offering. Could we offer both first period and rather than a 0 and a first? But
Well, I definitely support this. That is a concern.
absolutely.
And I guess flip-flopping it from year to year would be one way to address that, because otherwise they're still not equal.
Right, and they're still, and so we're trying to, our initial thought was maybe flip-flopping that each year. So 0 period one year, next year it would rotate. And that was one way to try to balance that out a little bit more and give kids a more equal opportunity to take. But right now, just with Spanish and offering it 2 periods, it's when you start looking at our upper courses in French, the numbers are definitely shrinking.
I'm well aware.
So
I have a student who's in a combined 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year Spanish class, or French, all in one class.
Yeah. So this is just a proposal that we're bringing, but it's we'd like to get some direction on how to proceed, and we do know that it's not a perfect solution, but it's a step, I think, in the right direction.
It's not directly to the point, but I continue to have concern, particularly about classes that can count for credit at the high school. Any of them being in 0 period when we don't bus to 0 period. It's discriminatory,
I agree with you.
particularly at the middle school, where you can't drive. It's
Yeah.
reliant on parents' job schedules, and parental transportation.
Well, absolutely. I think that's something that all districts struggle with as well.
Any further questions, comments for Dr. Maxwell? Thank you, Bob.
All right. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share our ideas and proposal, and I will bring some of that feedback and share that with Joe and Cameron and see if we can think of some other creative ways to address those issues.
Our next discussion item is policy 3417, catheterization by Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you very much. So this is policy 3417. This was updating some language in catheterization. Specifically, you can see the cross-outs where it states employees who are not licensed nurses whose job description do not require. So what it boils down to, there's a couple minor changes, such as authorized rather than permitted, or the word or acronym LPNs for licensed practical nurse. The main change here is employees except licensed nurses who have not previously agreed in writing to perform clean intermittent bladder catheterization as a part of their specific job description may file a written letter of refusal to perform that. And Michelle, our lead nurse in the district, and I have, Michelle Hyatt and I have discussed this, and we're okay with this language. It really will not impact what we typically do when we run into a situation that will require this. So that's the major change right now, is that they would file a written letter if they thought they were unable to perform that specific health-related function.
Again, I have a comment just about, in general, about the policy. The policy is self-explanatory, but I think for the public has no idea about what functions and requirements and specific responsibilities and the technicalities of having to perform them legally and so on, that schools perform now. It's the shift in my 20 years since elementary school, I'm 50 years since, but even in the last 20 years, the additional duties and responsibilities, many of them unfunded, is just amazing to me. And yet we seem to have a segment question the work that we're doing, the staff are doing. It's disheartening at times.
Any further comments for Dr. Nixon? I think.
All right, thank you.
And you're up again, Bob, for
Yep.
policy 5011 on sexual harassment.
Correct. There's been several changes, and this was updated in December. Just seemed just yesterday to me, but more changes have occurred, and so we're revisiting this. And I have to think back, because we've had so many of these we've done already this year. Now we're coming back, and the changes you can see there highlight the policy and the procedure, which includes the complaint process. And again, it references the policy and procedure. So basically, the major changes here is to reflect that this needs to be, the complaint process has to be posted in each of the buildings and reported in our staff and student handbooks. That is the latest change to this particular policy and procedures.
I wondered where that would be posted.
We actually have posters. They're
I've seen it in
quite,
workrooms.
and they're colorful.
But but students, like,
They're in the hallways.
oh, okay.
Yes, and during our comprehensive program review, the teams did go out and visit the buildings to ensure that those posters were up, and
Okay.
they were all properly displayed, and we were signed off as meeting compliance in that area. So, but they're posted in the hallways as well as in the workplace. And with the construction at the high school, we end up moving those around as construction continues. So, any questions or?
We'll move on to our next discussion item, which is policy 5010, non-discrimination and affirmative action, by Dr. Maxwell.
Yes, and this is another one of our policies, which we will visit multiple times this year. So this is going to be a theme throughout the rest of the evening. So again, 5010 was updated in December, and again, it's April, and we're updating it again. So, and I've talked about this before, so I'll keep it brief, but these are the highlighted, underlined pieces that need to be in our non-discrimination statement. And again, it has to be part of our employment packet, documentation and distribution, advertisements and such.
Thoughts, comments from the board? Okay.
So they took the designated youth groups out?
I noticed that.
On this particular one, yeah.
They struck out the designated youth groups. They've changed it.
There are some slight differences between the non-discrimination statements and hiring versus other public documentations, and that is one of them.
All right.
So we'll move on.
Well, it
to-
makes sense that a group thing would come out of it. Because
Yeah.
everything else has to do with
Yeah.
individuals'
Yeah, for
status.
the affirmative action piece, it's slightly different than the other non-discrimination statements that you'll see. And that's the key one, is the youth groups, because we're not addressing youth groups, we're addressing employees
Right.
or potential employees.
All right, ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
All right, okay. So now our last discussion item is the policy 5000, recruitment and selection of staff. Dr. Maxwell.
Again, policy 5000, this was, I think, last updated in 2012, so this one is a little bit different. You can see the main change there is, again, in the opening statement, the Pullman School District Board of Directors recognizes some of that other language was deleted in the intro. Again, the governance, the main piece is to assure that students grow and meet their full potential. The district recruits staff that are highly effective, having the necessary skills and experience to meet the learning needs of all students. And they struck out staff are recruited and selected. So there's a little bit of some duplications and condensing of those, the information. And I believe the other was just the legal references were updated.
And thanks to Allison for some editing on this one to make it read better than it read from our WASDA sample.
It was odd.
Yeah, it was odd.
Maybe they should send them to Allison first before they send them out throughout the state. Save all the school boards some work.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Allison, for helping with this.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. We have a few informational items this evening, and the board is encouraged to look those over. Administrative requirements update, board calendar, and current enrollment, which we have discussed actually already. Student records, homeless students, and curricular development and adoption. And these are primarily procedures, is that correct? Am I reading these correctly on the information?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When Mr. Franklin would be here and his contract would start, will he be here over the summer?
His contract will begin on the 1st of July.
July 1st?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, we haven't had any conversations about, early start or anything. He's got a contract that he's got to work out. And typically, not sure what his employment status is right now and when he might be finished, because he's not on an administrative contract. So it might be a bit different, so we might be able to get him earlier.
I was thinking if he was possibly here for some of the summer activities heavily that are in June, there are camps and school-sponsored camps for the various sports and so on.
We'll take him as early as we can get him.
Right.
But we have to go with, he has obligations already. And
Right.
that concludes our items for this evening. We now have some items for the executive session, so we'll recess and give the audience about 5 minutes to ask questions if they wish to, and then we'll re-adjourn. Do I hear a motion to temporarily adjourn?
I move that we recess into executive session.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, do I have any action
We,
taken afterward?
yes, there will be an action item, potentially.
I moved in second that we move into recess into executive session, and we'll delay that for about 5 minutes. Thank you for attending. You can ask questions.